Hello and welcome to In Case You Missed It, the latest instalment of our half-hour headlong dash through some of the highlights that we at VAST have come across in the last month. I'm Tom, Strategic Liaison Officer here at VAST.
And I'm Stephen, Community Development Officer at VAST.
Thanks for lending a hand with presenting duties, Stephen. I know you're quite new to VAST, so what are your first impressions?
Great, to be honest. There's just so much to VAST. It's a really apt name, and it's been fantastic to be part of a new community development team from the beginning.
That's great to hear. And I've been learning new things about you too. So here's what's in store for this month's show.
As always, we'll bring news of current funding and contract opportunities, a spotlight on some of the headline developments locally and nationally, opportunities for our sector to shape and influence what our colleagues in health and local government are doing, and some key dates to jot down in your diary.
We also love to bring perspectives from across the sector to the podcast. This month, we'll be hearing from Becky Banks at Assist about what makes advocacy tick, as well as from Laura Nichols of the Stoke City Foundation, following the recent launch of their new strategy, and Patrick Myers from Thrive at 5 about the recent unveiling of the Civil Society Covenant.
Sounds great. Let's go.
Now, as we always say, we do know it can be tough to keep abreast of everything. We can't fit all of the sector goings on into what's really the length of a short bus ride, but we hope that we can get you closer to the little details that will make a difference in your work.
Our sector is full of the most knowledgeable and well-connected people we can think of, and some of what we cover you may already know, but we hope there will be something useful for you in the next hour.
We're aiming to give you just enough to judge what might be useful to you, so that you can go away fully equipped to find out more for yourself. Here's the key thing. We won't be talking about any one thing in great detail, so please do take a look at the show notes and there'll be a link for everything that we cover. First up is Funding in 5. This is our regular roundup of contract and funding opportunities that are currently available to VCSEs here in Stoke-on-Trent or within a stone's throw of the city. Several grant funding opportunities are currently being promoted, so again, check the show notes for the appropriate links. We talked through several opportunities in last month's podcast, and one or two of those are still open too.
The Commonwealth Foundation offers grants up to £60,000 to civil society organisations anywhere in the Commonwealth, and they're most interested in constructive engagement between civil society and decision makers, including VCSE participation in policy development and implementation. The three key themes for this grant maker are health justice, freedom of expression and climate justice. The catch is that the lead organisation has to be registered elsewhere in the Commonwealth, but the project can involve UK organisations.
So let me check, is there a link in the show notes?
There definitely is. The deadline is quite short at the time of recording, but it's worth looking at because this is an annual call out, so likely that the funding will be available again next year.
Sounds like that might be useful for organisations working with communities that have specific links or family and community connections overseas, which could make for some interesting projects.
Look out for the government's Common Ground Resilience Fund, which totals £1.7 million nationally and is offering up to £10,000 per successful applicant.
Common Ground has a really interesting purpose. As the government puts it, the bonds that hold society together are under threat from divisive forces such as political polarisation, declining trust, social isolation and economic insecurity. These bonds are formed and nurtured at a local level, and they're often sustained by the vital work of voluntary, community and social enterprise organisations that bring communities together and foster connections.
So, the Common Ground Award aims to recognise good practice across England in promoting social cohesion by directly investing in organisations making a positive impact. The application process is outlined on the website and closes on the 13th of November. We'll put a link in the show notes for you.
Stop the Homeless is a small charity with funds available to support registered charities that have a turnover of under £500,000 to develop their buildings or buy equipment, with capital funding of up to £5,000 each. There's a final deadline for this one of the 15th of December, and that's to submit your project. But the clue's in the name, and your project needs to be enabling support for people experiencing homelessness.
Stoke-on-Trent City Council's Family Matters programme continues to offer microgrants, usually up to £500, to support community-oriented goals. These grants are administered by Alice Charity, Family Focus, YMCA North Staffs and Just Family in their roles as locally trusted organisations.
As ever, there's a link in the show notes, and it's always worth saying that if you feel like writing bids is not your thing, or perhaps you just don't know whether it is yet, then VAST has a friendly and supportive team here on hand to help you find your grant funding groove.
Just drop us a line or send an email to support@vast.org.uk and we'll be glad to talk about how we can help you. As ever, the contact details are in the show notes. VAST also maintains a vault of current and ongoing funding opportunities, including the ones we've mentioned, which you can find on our website. As part of the podcast, we do also usually have a handful of fresh or ongoing opportunities to supply the local authority and the NHS. Public sector contract opportunities do sometimes require you to be familiar with a range of different processes, which we'll try to explain briefly as we talk. But as ever, if you need a little more help, then contact us by emailing support@vast.org.uk.
Now, at the time of recording, there are relatively fewer opportunities advertised than sometimes is the case, but we'd absolutely encourage you to keep your eyes and ears peeled. In the long run, we're continuing to push for more approachable processes, and we know that the Council and the NHS do want to help make this happen. Back in July, we ran our first session with commissioners and procurement experts from Stoke-on-Trent City Council to help VCSEs get commissioning ready. And very soon, we're going to be announcing new dates for that free training in 2026, so do look out.
Slowly but surely, change is coming, partly due to changes in legislation, and also because we're working with the City Council through the VCSE City Alliance to enable the sector to shape the change it wants to see. If you'd like to be involved in this work, then there's a link to more information about the VCSE City Alliance in the show notes.
So, in truth, there aren't so many new opportunities being advertised at the time of recording, but there are some constants which are being advertised for the long term and which we've shared in previous podcasts. It might sound like slim pickings, but things can change quickly, and so we'd certainly encourage you to keep your ears to the ground.
Over at the NHS, Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services, or CAMS, is looking for organisations that wish to be considered as suppliers of a full range of services across the 0 to 25 age range, and this opportunity is going to stay open until 2027.
As we've said before, this is based on what's called a dynamic purchasing system, or DPS. Now, it sounds complicated, but really when you see a DPS mentioned, it means that the opportunities, like the one we've just outlined, don't close anytime soon. Instead, you're applying to register your services with the council or with Health, and if you're successful, then you become eligible to supply them for a period of several years alongside other providers. It's rarely a guarantee of work or income, but it can be a useful way to establish a supplier relationship and to grow your income generation. So think of it as a little bit like a 0 hours arrangement for a supplier.
Similar to a DPS, you might also see an approach called a framework. However, unlike DPSs, frameworks do close for applications. So while you are applying to be one of several suppliers, you're also working to a very clear deadline. There are no frameworks open at the minute, but it's increasingly common approach.
Now, we realise that we just ran into some real jargon, and specialist terminology is so hard to avoid when it comes to procurement and commissioning. Hopefully you're still with us, but if that all feels like a foreign language to you, then do let us know and we'll keep you in the loop for next year's training, which can help you to get to grips with things.
As always, when organisations share with us what they're unsure or uncertain about, that's what helps us to improve the support we offer. So in other words, do just pick up the phone and let's have a chat. Next Next up, we have a scattering of our regular spotlights. These are about opportunities arising from key programmes and projects that are just getting going or beginning to make a splash in the city.
Now, we do often give these developments more airtime and do them more justice at forums like VSCOG, that's our Voluntary Sector Chief Officers Group, and the Healthy Communities Alliance. Bottom line is there's really no substitute for a proper lowdown, but here's a quick scan through what's new and what's gathering pace.
Stoke City Foundation have been a major player in our city and our sector for many years. Lots of listeners will have worked with them and their staff on any number of fantastic projects down the years. They recently unveiled a new vision that spells out how they aim to connect the communities of Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire by creating inclusive opportunities to play football and be active. We caught up with Chief Executive Laura Nichols to find out more.
So, hi there, Laura. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us. Would you mind just introducing yourself briefly for the listeners?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Thanks for having me. I'm Laura Nichols. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for Stoke City Foundation.
And hot news on the grapevine is that you have a new strategy at the foundation, which you launched very, very recently. So please, could you tell us in brief about the new strategy, why Stoke City Foundation and why now?
Yeah, so I think first things first, we've made a name change. So we were Stoke City Community Trust. We're the charitable arm of the football club, and we've decided to rebrand and relaunch as Stoke City Foundation. And I think there's for lots of reasons, but the kind of probably the main two were that we felt it was necessary to have a stronger brand and a stronger name in the community. So we felt like Foundation, whilst it's not revolutionary, it's not something that other community organisations don't use, we just felt it was the right time for us to do that. And we also know that nothing is built without strong foundations, and ultimately that's what we've pulled along. So we've kind of taken all the really good stuff that the Community Trust have done over the years, and lots of respect to everybody that's delivered on that. But we felt like we needed to rebrand and reshape and kind of re-energise us as a charity. So we sat down together. We did it very insular. It wasn't something that we went out to consult about because we felt like we weren't ready to do that. What we did was we kind of identified everything that we've delivered previously, what worked, what we felt we got good impact from, what we felt really met the needs of the football club, and then we came up with a brand new strategy. So yeah, we launched that at the end of September. We did a stakeholder breakfast which had loads of our stakeholders and partners from across the city and Staffordshire, and then on the Saturday we did it at the men's game against Norwich and then the women's game on the Sunday. So it was a really busy weekend for us at the end of September, but what we were able to do was really kind of shout loudly and proudly about our new vision and our new name. So that's what we were able to do.
And did the team add 3 points to celebrate the launch of the new strategy as well?
So the women's team did, the men's team got a draw. So all in all, a very positive weekend.
Not bad at all. Fantastic. So what are the key elements of the new strategy, Laura?
So what we wanted to do, Tom, was create a really defined kind of message. So we've got 3 kind of vision strap lines, and they are active communities, healthier lives, and united by football. And what we mean by active communities is playing our part to bring communities together and get them active. And that might be through physical activity, but it also might be for them becoming an active community in their space. So, whether we educate them or support them in certain areas, we want to get the community to be active and take our activities to the community and not assume that everybody's going to come to us. So we want to be a little bit more structured in the way that we work. Healthier Lives speaks for itself. We want to create and support healthier physical activity and mental well-being for everybody that we work with, and united by football, because we wouldn't exist without the fabulous football club that we're part of. But also, really importantly, we know our badge stems from way beyond the pitch. We know that our impact can come way beyond whatever happens on a weekend. So we wanted to make sure we did that and we underpinned it. So we've been quite strong with that kind of strap line. That's a lot of the messaging that people would have seen as we launched, and we think that everything that sits behind that will allow us to kind of really evolve. And then from that, we set some kind of key missions and objectives, and we want to work across the city and Staffordshire, and that is ultimately to do a couple of big things. One big thing that we spoke about in the strategy was that we wanted to create a space for communities to come together, and we committed to building a flagship facility in the heart of the city, and that's something that is a really exciting project for us. It's something that's going to be a huge focus for us as we move forward, and give us the opportunity to really create something really special. I think where we can do all of our activities, deliver from, it'll become our home. The kind of plan is that we would relocate there as a charity. So we'll still have a base at the Bet365 Stadium, but we would create a flagship facility in the city. And that's definitely the thing that landed really well. It's definitely the thing that people were really excited about. And then underpinning all that, we want to make sure that we educate people on the benefits of a healthy lifestyle and try and positively impact people's physical and mental well-being. But so we made some quite bold statements in the strategy. I think it's our job now is to start to pull that together and show how we can impact that and measure that. So that's the work that we've started to do since the end of September.
And with the Stoke City Foundation potentially bringing a really inspiring space to the heart of the city with Port Vale's campus, it feels like an incredibly exciting time for our football clubs and the role that you're both playing in the city. I know that lots of VCSE organisations that we work with have kind of a long history and almost heritage of working with some really inspiring team members from the Community Trust previously, but now Stoke City Foundation. So what are your reflections on what the strategy might mean for foundation staff who are working in our communities? Is there anything that VCSE organisations might see that is a little bit different or a little bit new?
Yeah, I think there's probably a few things. I mean, first and foremost, one of the things that we said a lot in that strategy release was that nothing is built without strong foundations, and our staff are at the heart of that. You know, the workforce have been fantastic since I arrived, nearly actually 7 months today, I think. So I think they've really embraced what we want to do. And I think what people will start to see from us is a more collaborative approach to how we work. And I mean that internally as well. You know, we had lots of really good people doing lots of really good stuff across the whole organisation, but it perhaps wasn't aligned and joined up enough to benefit. So if you put the participant at the heart of everything that we do now, I think they'll be able to see more of a connected journey with us. So whether they're at in our primary schools work, and then what they can do on a weekend with us, whether they're people that attend some of our activities aimed at the older generation, how they can then do multiple things with us. So I think that the organisations will start to see that. And I guess my message to other organisations is that we have this long-term ambition to create hubs within the city in Staffordshire, and part of that I think is for us to take our activities to a space and deliver a multitude of activities. So rather than us trying to be quite scattergun about where we work, we want to be a lot more strategic, go to a geographical location and have an impact in that community. And I see us being able to work with lots of organisations across the voluntary sector that can help us do that. So if there are organisations with community hubs or anything like that, then I'd be really keen to talk to them to see if we can bring some of our activities to them and work alongside them.
Certainly feels like there are some fantastic collaborations in the offing and potential for more in that area. Happy 7-month anniversary. It feels like you've got a lot of momentum going and travelled a lot of distance in a relatively short space of time. So maybe it's also a really good time to ask what excites you the most personally about the new strategy.
I think it's been a really busy 7 months. I think everybody's really embraced the changes that we needed to make and wanted to make. And whilst that strategy has not been done with collaboration kind of outside of the stadium, it's definitely been done with collaboration inside from the stadium. And I think what excites me is the changes that we've made already as an organisation. You know, we feel a lot more connected. And ever since we've launched, I've had so many initial conversations with partners across the city and Staffordshire. And I think people really now understand who we are. One of the things that a lot of people said to me in those first initial months was, I think you do some really good stuff, but I don't really know what you do. And it really resonated with me, that we need to be really defined. So that definition of active communities, healthier lives, united by football, that's who we are. That's what we want to do. So if we can, add value to an organisation, add value to an existing project, support a local need, make sure that we are actually adding some value and actual purpose to what we're trying to do. I think that's what excites me the most, the opportunity to impact and support some of the needs of the city and put our stamp on it, but do that in collaboration. We don't need to be all things to all people. We need to work together. And I know that was the message that landed from the breakfast, and I'm really keen to build on that. So yeah, really, really excited.
Fantastic. I know that our sector is really, really keen to see how this collaboration continues to flower and how it continues to develop. Laura Nichols, Stoke City Foundation, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sam.
A few podcasts ago, we also featured news of the government's new Civil Society Covenant, which is a foundation for resetting the relationship between government and civil society. Following a national consultation, the final version of the Covenant was launched recently in London, and Stoke-on-Trent's very own Patrick Myers was on scene to report back for us.
Hi. Thank you. Some of you will know me from Thrive at 5. Others will know also that I've been seconded into work on the Family Matters programme in Stoke-on-Trent City Council. And I want to share with you that I had the privilege to attend the launch of the Civil Society Covenant at the Science Museum on the 17th of July. Thrive at 5 were invited to present and sit on a panel with Bridget Phillipson, the Secretary of State for Education. And I took the opportunity equally to share some of the work that Family Matters is undertaking in Stoke-on-Trent, looking about how do we greet families earlier in order that we don't greet them too late when they're in crisis or stressed. Present were a very, very large number of voluntary sector organisations. Keir Starmer was there, as were about 9 ministers, as well, sharing the government's commitment to work with the voluntary sector, because they are seeing the voluntary sector as part of the fabric of our nation. And they do honestly, I believe, want to work in partnership to build a better, fairer future for all. And government should lean into the work in partnership with the civil society and actually begin to form a substantial collaboration between the two. And by government, I mean government and all public bodies, whether that's the NHS, whether it's local authorities, all of those organisations that need, in my opinion, and you might say, I'm bound to say this, need the expertise and the local knowledge that local voluntary sector organisations are able to do. The local authority, as you know, in Stoke-on-Trent is focusing on a narrative that our children of the city of Stoke-on-Trent are not the children of the local authority. They are our children, and it's the power and quality of our partnerships that will make the difference to things like good levels of development, educational attainment, and good emotional health and well-being. And this comes about through the power of we working to a shared agenda. I was also able to share the partnership that Thrive at 5 has with the local authority and the ICB, because I think it acknowledges the unique trust and relationships that the voluntary sector has with communities and the bridges these organisations can build with families and communities as a result. Family Matters is the programme that I'm leading, as you know, within Stoke-on-Trent City Council. It is about community-based early help to reduce demand for more intensive services. Fundamental to achieving this is the role of local trusted organisations. And I was able to share how local voluntary organisations, which are close to our communities, are a fundamental part of the solution to act early, as described in the Family First Partnership Programme. This is to support family through universal and community-based care. This is very much the model that Thrive at 5 is undertaking in the places where they are working, connecting, brokering, local cooperation. And it's great to be able to say that this is happening in other places in Stoke-on-Trent other than where Thrive at 5 is working. It was a great opportunity to showcase. I enjoyed my time there, and I'm hoping very much that the covenant will become part and parcel of the way in which all public services interact with the voluntary and community sector. Well, there is an incredibly fertile ground now for dialogue, I think, about what the voluntary sector can offer in order, as I mentioned earlier, to solve some of the solutions, be part of the solutions of some of the issues that are facing both health and both local authority. The opportunity with the Best Start in Life strategy that's come out with Best Start in Life family hubs, equally the neighbourhood approach to health must provide opportunities for local organisations to operate, but it's great to see that there is a strong commitment nationally to making the promise, and I do think the covenant is a promise that recognises the value of the voluntary sector, and equally how long-term problem solving to the benefit of people in all parts of the country can occur through that dialogue between public bodies and the voluntary and community sector.
North Staff's Combined Healthcare Trust have launched a new Stakeholder Spotlight newsletter, which includes key stories and updates from across the Trust, highlighting the way that they deliver mental health, learning disabilities, substance misuse and primary care services across North Staffs and Stoke-on-Trent. I read it over lunch and it was really pleasing to see that they've been named the #1 non-acute trust in England by the NHS and Department of Health.
Great stuff. Well done to all our colleagues at the combined team.
Sticking with health, Midlands Partnership Foundation Trust, or MPFT, are seeking people of all ages with lived experience of mental health for a patient and carer race equality framework lived experience advisory group. Now, I know that was a bit of a mouthful, but you just need to be a service user or carer from a racially or ethnically minoritized community, and MPFT hope that the group will help them to better serve our communities. This month, there are some new opportunities to shape the work of our colleagues in local government and health. These are our chances as a sector to both feed in our own views and insights and to make sure that our communities and beneficiaries can also be heard as new initiatives take shape and as decisions are made.
Stoke-on-Trent City Council is currently consulting on a couple of initiatives, including a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, which details plans for 5 new cycle routes and 5 improved walking routes at locations across the city.
There's also consultation on the local plan, which is intended to guide the future development of the city up to 2040. The vision is that Stoke-on-Trent will have further developed its role at the heart of the region and will be economically stronger, healthier, fairer and inclusive for everyone, celebrating the city's unique towns, heritage and culture and supporting sustainable development, mitigating the impacts of climate change.
You can sign up to receive updates and register your views on the council website. There's a link in the show notes.
Staffordshire University have a joint initiative with Caudwell Children, which aims to better understand the views of parents of autistic children aged 7 to 12 about how healthy eating information is shared with them in mainstream schools. If you would like to take part in a focus group or interview to support this, please contact them directly. Details and contacts are in the show notes. Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent ICB is reaching out to people who have short-term, long-term or end-of-life mobility needs and who require a real wheelchair for daily life. They've launched a survey to seek views and gather feedback between now and March 2026. So if you know a child, young person or adult with a view they'd like to contribute, then please follow the link in the show notes to make sure that their perspective counts.
So many of us will have used the Haywood Hospital or walking centre with family members or the people we support. But many people will be less aware of the Haywood Foundation, which is a local charity based at the hospital. They're looking for views from patients, carers, family members, friends and the wider community to help inform the work that they do in the area. And there's a link to the survey in the show notes.
Lastly, and although the best shaping and influencing activity often happens at the outset of a project, there are inevitably times when our sector has to be more reactive. Our colleagues at Healthwatch are asking the government to revisit some of the decisions made with the launch of its 10-year plan for the NHS, which, as things stand, will sadly see the abolition of Healthwatch services. Now, Healthwatch is a local and independent service that speaks up for public interests, and Healthwatch are encouraging partners to vouch for the value of their services so that they continue supporting the health service to realise its ambitions. There's a link in the show notes to more about that campaign. Now it's time for our regular section about upcoming dates for your diary.
Our friends at SCVYS, that's the Staffordshire Council of Voluntary Youth Services, is convening a community of practice around co-production. It aims to sustain awareness, understanding and confidence around co-production. The first meeting is on the 16th of October from 12 till 1, with further details available from Phil at SCVYS. We've included a link to the flyer with his address in the show notes.
VAST still has lots of opportunities coming up in our own events diary before the end of 2025 too, including training sessions on funding strategy, Canva, communications and social media, health inequalities, difficult conversations, and even dealing with loan sharks.
There are also lots of forums and networks where you can meet other VCSEs and share skills and knowledge. These include workshops for health champions looking at communicating messages about vaccines, our Volunteer Managers Network and the Stoke-on-Trent Food Partnership.
All of those opportunities are listed on the VAST events calendar, so get yourself booked on. Huge thanks for sticking with us during our dash through the month's news. We've reached the point in the podcast where we give the floor to people who are working hard to make change real.
As we've said at the start of the podcast, we're really excited to bring you another sector perspective this month, highlighting what is unique and powerful about the work that takes place in the VCSE sector. We were lucky to hear from Becky Banks, who started out as a volunteer but is now Staffordshire Service Manager at Assist. She shared her thoughts about the word advocacy. It's a word that has many meanings, but in Becky's area of work, it's certainly something that has a special power.
So, hi Becky.
Hi.
And thanks for joining us.
Right.
So first of all, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about Assist and your role there?
Okay, so my name is Becky Banks. I've worked for Assist for 20 years. I was initially an advocate and now I've moved up to team leader and now I'm the Staffordshire Service Manager. I came to advocacy at Assist as a volunteer when my children were little and kind of moved up in the kind of way of going to part-time, full-time. Assist is an organisation that provides advocacy. Initially, when I started, we did what was called generic advocacy. So we would support people with lots of different things. We supported people very much around anything that was going on with their lives. So if they had a disability or a significant inability to be able to be participating in whatever was happening, we would be supporting them. So that might have been back then around parental advocacy, so supporting them through the courts. It might have been something as simple as a partner dying and supporting them through going to solicitor and things like that. We went to lots of meetings with doctors, lots of meetings with solicitors, everything we supported with at that point, lots of benefit support and things like that. We don't do all that now. So what happened is that legislation changed, and when legislation changed, statutory advocacy became the norm, and eventually that was all sidelined as generic, and we now do what's called statutory. So that's on advocacy under the Care Act, it's advocacy under the Mental Health Act, Mental Capacity Act, and we support with NHS complaints. We have two branches, so we cover all of Staffordshire and we cover all of Stoke-on-Trent. Stoke-on-Trent also has parental advocacy and children's advocacy. So that's supporting children through SENS, through looked after children reviews, things like that, and supporting parents through the courts if they're going through child protection or child in need. With kind of statutory advocacy, what we now do is support people through things like Care Act assessments and things like that. So Care Act assessments are something anyone can ask for if they've got difficulties in being part of society, I guess. So if they need support for whatever reasons, maybe it's because they've become elderly or unwell, they might need a Care Act assessment, and if they're not able to participate in that on their own or find it difficult, and difficulty doesn't necessarily mean they can't talk or anything like that, but it does mean that they might struggle to understand things, and our job is really to help explain that and help them to be fully a participant in anything or any decisions around their life.
I learned a huge amount from listening to Becky. And in future, we'd really love to welcome more of you as guest hosts and contributors to In Case You Missed It. That's an invitation to members and partners to talk briefly about something you're working on or developing, or something that just makes communities tick, much as Becky has just done. As always, we'd love, In Case You Missed It, to be a little bit less us and a little bit more you. So please do get in touch if you would like to join us.
So as always, all good things must come to an end. How was the podcast for you? We'd love to hear just a little bit of feedback on how we can improve the show for you. And there's a link to the feedback form in the show notes.
But for now, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.